you have to be home. Yes, you wear the clothes, then you say, Daddy, I'm going, but by 5 o'clock, be home. And then you become frustrated, you know, Daddy, I'm not that young, you know, I know what to do. But it's because he wants something to be very good for you. It's just by love that he's doing it for you. Now, because he has repeated these things many times, when you are at the cinema with the others, it will become in the brain. You'll continue to remember, oh, Dad repeated these things many times, so it must be important. Yes, so it's not only this, that even in the ancient times, Jehovah used this repetition also to his people. Maybe you can read with me in Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 22. Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 22. I guess everybody's there. I'm going to read. It says, "These commandments Jehovah spoke to all your congregation on the mountain, out of the fire, the cloud, and the thick gloom, with a loud voice, and he added nothing further. Then he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone and gave them to me." Yes, you remember by talking about this command, the 10 commandments. First, Jehovah, he called the congregation of Israel. He told them the 10 commandments. Again, he wrote the same commandments. He gave them to Moses in written form now. Before the Israel could enter the promised land, Moses had to again to remind the Israelites about these 10 commandments. And not only that, there is also another thing which has been repeated over and over and over again in the Bible. It's many times. It's like you can read yourself in Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 12. It says, you have to love Jehovah with all your heart, all your soul, and then with all your strength. So this has been repeated in a number of times in the Bible. So, why was this repeated? Jesus again, as you can read in Matthew with me, chapter 22, then we're going to start from verse 34 until 38. We are going to see that they had to repeat all over and over again these commandments. So you can read with me Matthew chapter 22, and then we're coming to verse 34 until 38. I guess everybody is there. Yes. So I'm going to read. It says, after the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they came together in one group. And one of them, versed in the law, tested him by asking, "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" He said to him, "You must love Jehovah, your God, with your whole heart, and with your whole soul, with your whole mind. This is the greatest and first commandment." Now you can see that the Israel, they have to repeat to be that they had to get this commandment all over and all over again. It's the greatest commandment that is found, the most important commandment. So now we come to Jesus' ministry. Remember that we have 4 Gospels, and sometimes you can find the same idea, which is talked in Matthew. It's also talked in Mark. It's also talked in John or Luke. Yes, it's like, but now it's just from different angles that we have this. And again, Jesus also, he used repetition in the ministry. Remember that in different occasions, the disciples, they were like saying like, okay, I'll be the greatest. Who is the greatest? And first, Jesus gave them example of the children. You can read yourself in Matthew chapter 18 from verse 1 to 6. On another occasion, the mother of one of the disciples was asking Jesus, "My son, can my son be on your left and on your right in your kingdom?" So Jesus again was using the same, like trying to repeat the same thing, you know. In the first, you have to be like kids. You have to be, it's not my power to give who is going to sit on the left, on the right. So It's like the value of a repetition. And then it was very important for them that Jesus was repeating all these things. But as our greatest teacher, even us today, we have to use repetition, especially when we are in the ministry. Repetition is very important. But how can we make a repetition? We see that we can use repetition, especially, for example, you are doing a conclusion, and then after you finish, you give a scripture, then you can say, now we have before I leave, you remember that we talked about this. Or maybe the way you're conversing with your audience or with the listener, you can get out that he's not getting exactly what you want him to or he's not understanding some of the points. In that case, you have again to make a repetition. Or in terms of return visit, you have been here this week, you come back after 2 weeks after. Of course, you don't put in your mind that the listener or the Bible student is going to remember everything you did for the last time. In that case, we need to repeat. So repetition is very good, So, as we said, let me myself also use repetition. So, we saw that Jehovah used the repetition. Even Jesus used the repetition in the ministry. So, even for us, we can use the repetition, as repetition is very good. So now, brothers and sisters, let us welcome Brother Rasmussen Jørgensen.